Hey guys, this is God of Politics. I'm welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, that is linked down in the description and on my channel page, and join the Discord, that is linked down in the description. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about what I consider to be the dark horse of the 2020 presidential election, and that is the state of Georgia. Georgia is a state that has been trending to the blue column for some years now, and you can really see it by what I'm going to talk about in this video. You can really see that the trends are very in play. The trends are very drastic, and they're making Georgia actually quite a competitive state when it comes to the 2020 election that some people are not actually talking about when I do think that they should. So first, we're going to be looking at the governor's elections. This is the 2006 Georgia governor election. If we go back to 2002, we see Sonny Perdue here, won by 5 points. He's now the incumbent. 2006 was a Democratic wave year. It was a very good year for them overall. Democrats had the Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor running, and he loses by 20 points. He loses by 20 points in 2006. If we go to 2010, we can see here that the governor election in 2010, Nathan Deal won by 10 percentage points. You're already having it closer there. This is, again, 2010. This is a Republican wave year, so it's 10 points closer, and either the Republicans did miles better overall. That is Republican wave year. Going over to 2014 here, we can say this year it was another election that was closer here. We can say that this election was decided by 7.9 percentage points here. And then, as always, the hotly contested 2018 governor's election race between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams went to Brian Kemp by 1.4 percentage points. So it's become a lot closer over the governor's years, regardless of the wave years. Republicans had wave years in 2010 and 2014, and it still got a lot closer than what it was in 2006. And now we see in 2018 it was even closer. But if we're looking at the presidential election results, we can see here that Mitt Romney won the state by 8 percentage points here. This is with Barack Obama, who increased black turnout by a very large percent. He did 1.5 percentage points worse than in 2008, but Mitt Romney still won the state by 8 percentage points. Going forward here, flash forwarding here to 2016, we can see that Hillary Clinton here won, or lost. We can see Hillary Clinton here lost by 5.1 percentage points here. So we see that there was a 3-point trend to the Democratic column in the state of Georgia. But the thing that's most important and most shocking about this is the trends that we're seeing in the suburbs. I've talked about this a little bit before. If you just look at each individual county, you can see here, for example, Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County went to Mitt Romney by just under 10 percentage points. So he wins it by just under 10 percentage points. Hillary Clinton wins it by 6 percentage points. So that's a 16-point trend. So overall, the state trended 3 points to the Democratic column, but the suburbs trended 16 points to the Democratic column in terms of Gwinnett County. Cobb County went to Mitt Romney by 13 points. It went to Hillary Clinton by 3, or by 2. So again, that's another 15-point trend in a suburban district. If we look at the urban district here, we can see that Hillary Clinton only did 3 points better at the average of what the state was, 3 points better. If you look at these rural areas here, we see that Donald Trump is doing very well in some of these rural areas. If you just look at this, for example, 80 to 15 in this county. Go back here, it was only 74. So what Donald Trump's doing is he's doing much better in the rural areas than Mitt Romney did. And that's why the trends were only 3 points to the Democratic column, because all this deep red that you see here, that was trending to the Republican column, because what's happened is the Democrats have lost their grip on many of these rural areas, but they're gaining big in the suburban areas. And the reason for this is partly due to Donald Trump, partly just due to the Republican Party overall. But the reason that this is worrying for Republicans is that if you look at these areas here, these rural areas, Donald Trump's got 70% in most of them, up to 80% in some of these areas. There really is not much room to grow in a lot of these areas from his 2016 margins. If you're comparing it to 2012, yes, because there's a lot of lighter red here where this was only in the 60s. Some of these areas got into the 70s, but most of them were only in the 60s around here. And then you keep calling Donald Trump comes along, gets 80s in most of these places, gets 70s in most of these places. And that's something that you're really going to have to watch out for coming this election, because that it's the suburban trends. That's the thing that is most important. If we just look at another county here, we can look at Henry County here, went to Mitt Romney by 4 percentage points here. This is quite a big county, around 90,000 people here that voted, and then the county went to Hillary Clinton by 4.5 percentage points. So that's almost, again, that's a 6-7 point trend here. It's the suburban areas around Atlanta that are trending towards the Democratic column in ways that they have not before. And it's really not too much dependent on the black turnout as well, because Hillary Clinton, her black turnout was not as high as Barack Obama's was, but it was still quite high. And that's why she didn't do too much better in these urban areas compared to what Obama did. But it's these suburban areas that have the most impact. Because if we're looking further out, we can see this county, for example, Walton County went to Donald Trump 76-20. It went to Romney 77-21. So if we're going to those exurbs, those areas further out from the suburbs just next to the city, they're staying just as Republican, if not getting more Republican. But these areas of high population, we look at Douglas County here, went to Obama by 4, goes to Hillary Clinton by 13. These are big trends, and these are big counties too. If we look at Cobb County here, that is 300,000 people just voting. Same thing with Gwinnett County here. That's another over 325,000 people voting in this district. And another thing, there's expected to be a lot higher turnout in this election. There's expected to be higher black turnout. There's expected to be higher turnout on both sides. Who does that help? I'm not sure yet. But if it's in terms of black turnout, that will definitely help the Democrats. And that's going to be increasing in both the urban areas and the suburban areas if the projections are right. And that's going to help him in this election. And the next thing that we have to look at is the polls. The polls have shown that it's actually very close than people might say. The poll here that has Biden up by 1 percentage point, it took 500 likely voters, 7% other. It's Public Opinion Strategies. This is a Republican internal poll. So these results are skewed towards the Republicans oftentimes. Has Biden up by 1 percentage point. It did have David Perdue up by 1 percentage point in the Senate election, but it did have Joe Biden up by 1 in the presidential election against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a very popular person in this place, especially compared to David Perdue, the senator here. He's not doing very well in the suburbs, and he's doing well in these rural areas, but how much room does he have to gain in these rural areas? As I showed before, he's already at 80%, 70% in these areas. There's really not much room for him to gain in these areas. And so this poll that shows Biden up is very worrying, and a lot of people point to the fact, sure, Trump was up by 8 here, Trump was up by 7 here, but if we look at when these polls were, this poll was released the 4th of March. I believe it was actually quite a bit earlier than this thing. It was in February. But this was taken before Biden, was the presumptive nominee at kind of his bad points after Nevada and everything like this. Same thing with the Mason-Dixon poll. A Mason-Dixon poll is very skewed towards the Republicans as well. And it's taken at a point where, it's not at a best time for the Democrats. And there's another poll, the Signal poll here, had Trump up by 1. So the state is not going to necessarily go to the blue column, but it's certainly going to be closer. If we're looking at it on the electoral map, how does that affect the electoral map? We can just fill in some of these states. We can put Nevada in at lean blue, Minnesota in at lean blue. We can put Michigan at lean blue. We can put New Hampshire at lean blue. Just for sakes of this, I'll put Wisconsin and Arizona in the tilt column, Florida in the tilt column, North Carolina in the tilt column, and Pennsylvania in the tilt M column. It comes down to Georgia here. If Democrats win Georgia, it's a very big pickup for them, because assuming that they win Georgia, along with the trends that we're seeing, the reason that the Sun Belt is becoming a lot more Democratic is because of those suburban trends. If Georgia is going to have enough to go blue, then Arizona would also probably go blue. And at that point, Democrats can lose Pennsylvania and they could still win. And Michigan, I believe, is going to be a pretty likely flip. It's almost certain at this point. I believe there's like an 80% chance that this state is going to flip. It means that Democrats can flip Arizona, and they won't even have to flip Pennsylvania, a very big state with 20 electoral votes. They could just flip Georgia. And you could even take out Arizona here and just give them Florida and, take away Michigan, and they still won in that scenario. They could lose all of the Rust Belt, even lose Arizona, but win Georgia and Florida, and they win. And, by no means is Georgia going to go to the Democratic column. I am not implying that Georgia is going to the Democrats, but I believe that it is going to be the dark horse here, that Democrats are going to do better than people expect them to. It's a state that Joe Biden, if I think he should focus on this state. There's also been a lot of talk of him picking Stacey Abrams as his running mate. Stacey Abrams was the candidate for Georgia's governor in 2018. She is, she did well in this district, in this state. Why wouldn't she be able to do well at the presidential level as a vice presidential candidate? That could help him. It would also mean there's a lot of campaigning because there's going to be a lot of campaigning in Florida as always. There's going to be a lot of campaigning in North Carolina states. It's become a lot closer. And there's going to be campaigning in Arizona, Nevada, and all the Rust Belt, obviously. It's a lot of campaigning. Whether there is very much campaigning is another question that people are going to have to ask. But Georgia is a state that I believe, if I were Joe Biden, I would campaign heavily in this state. I believe that if he campaigns in the suburbs, he can bring a lot of those voters onto his side, new Democratic voters that were new last time, in these heavily trending districts. And it's not just at the presidential level, it's at the congressional district level, it's at the governor level, it's at the state legislature level. Democrats are gaining in the suburbs, and Republicans are gaining in the rural areas, but there's not much more room for them to gain in the rural areas, whereas there's a lot of room for Democrats to gain in the suburban areas. That is the point I'm trying to make here, and that is why I think that Georgia is going to be the dark horse of 2020, a lot closer than people might think. So yeah, thank you all for watching this video. Please like and subscribe as always. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, and I will see you guys later.